I believe in God, the one true creator of the universe, and I steadfastly follow the teachings of Islam. Islam teaches that Allah is the sole sovereign of all that exists, and everything, both in this world and beyond, unfolds according to his divine will and wisdom. While Carl Jung's experiences and views shared in this script offer intriguing insights, they do not align with the Islamic understanding of the world. Jung explored spiritual phenomena, yet I believe that true guidance and understanding can only be found through Allah. His existence is irrefutable, and the entire universe operates under his divine law and order. While this script may reflect personal experiences, I acknowledge that true faith is found in submission to Allah alone, seeking his guidance through the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. Now let us begin our exploration of the Carl Jung experience. Hey there! I'd love to share something really incredible with you, a deeply personal experience that has stayed with me for years. I've never really been one to put my faith in God or any kind of higher power, but I've come to understand that some moments in life defy explanation. One of those moments happened when I was at the brink of death, and what I saw during that time changed me forever. It was a profound experience, and though I can't explain it fully, I know it made me realize something incredible. My life was about to end, and I could see it unfolding before me. It all started when I broke my leg, and shortly after I suffered a heart attack. It was a terrifying combination of events, and before I knew it, I found myself drifting into something that felt like an out-of-body experience. I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or if what I was seeing was real, but I distinctly remember feeling like I was floating, like I was being pulled away from my body. I had no control, no way of stopping it. I felt weightless and free, almost like I was rising into the sky. Then, things took a strange and surreal turn. I looked down and saw Earth glowing beneath me. There was this ethereal blue light surrounding the land, a soft glow that illuminated everything I could see. It was so beautiful that it moved me in ways I can't explain. It didn't just look beautiful. It felt like I was seeing something far beyond our everyday existence, something almost sacred. As I watched from above, my mind couldn't help but draw a parallel to the story of Carl Gustav Jung, the famous psychiatrist who had a similar experience many years ago. In 1944, Jung suffered a heart attack and was, for all intents and purposes, clinically dead for a short time. Like me, he felt detached from his body, and during that time, he experienced visions that forever changed how he viewed the world. One of the most vivid parts of his experience was the way he saw Earth from a great height. He described looking down at the continents and oceans from around 100 kilometers above the surface, as if he were hovering in space. The way he saw the planet was so far removed from our normal perspective. It was as if he was witnessing Earth from a vantage point few people ever could. Jung's visions took him even further, though. As he gazed at Earth, he suddenly found himself being drawn away from it, pulled into the vastness of space. There, he saw a massive, rock-hewn structure, a temple, perhaps, floating in the emptiness. It was an ancient place, steeped in mystery. He described feeling that if he entered this temple, he would see everything he had ever wondered about, the purpose of his life, the secrets of the universe, and the answers to all the questions he had never been able to answer. It was as if the temple held all the knowledge of existence itself. But just as he was about to enter, something stopped him. He was not allowed to go inside. Instead, a figure appeared, someone he recognized as his doctor. This doctor was shining with a brilliant light, and they communicated without speaking. It was as though their thoughts merged, and Jung understood instantly that the doctor had a message for him. He was not meant to leave this world just yet. He was to return. For Jung, this moment was both a revelation and a disappointment. The temple represented everything he had hoped to understand about life, but he was told to return, to keep living. When Jung came back to consciousness, he felt a deep frustration. He believed the old world he had returned to was a kind of prison. The clarity and beauty of his vision made everything about his life feel small, insignificant. He was angry with the doctor who had revived him. He even felt as if the doctor's fate had been sealed by the intervention. The idea that Jung was allowed to see the mysteries of the universe while his doctor was only able to help him physically made him question everything. Interestingly, Jung later wrote about this experience in his memoirs. He explained that he tried to warn the doctor, telling him that his time was running out, but the doctor couldn't understand. And tragically, Jung's premonition turned out to be true. His doctor passed away shortly after Jung recovered, succumbing to a sudden illness. Jung couldn't shake the eerie feeling that his visions were a warning, both for himself and for the doctor who had saved him. But despite the emotional turmoil, Jung later found that his near-death experience brought him new insights into life. He began to see the world and himself in a completely different light. It was as if the visions had cracked open a door in his mind, allowing him to understand psychological issues in a fresh way. He went on to write several groundbreaking articles and even developed new psychological theories based on what he had seen during his time between life and death. He described it as a period of great creative flow, where his ideas came effortlessly, without any need for validation or approval. For Jung, this experience wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation. When I reflect on my own experience, I can't help but see similarities between what I went through and what Jung described. At first, I struggled with feelings of guilt and confusion, as though something was wrong with my connection to the world. But then, like Jung, I began to see the bigger picture. I realized that I didn't need to fight against the flow of life. I didn't need to control everything. The key was to trust in the subconscious, to let go of my fears and to embrace the unknown. Life was always going to have its mysteries, and instead of trying to solve them, I had to accept them. And in that acceptance, I found peace. Looking back on that moment when I thought I was on the edge of life, I realized how profoundly it impacted me. It wasn't just about the visions or the strange experiences. It was about the shift in my perspective. It was about learning to trust the journey, to let life unfold as it was meant to. I may never fully understand what happened during that time, but I know it gave me a sense of clarity that has stayed with me. And just like Jung, I can't help but feel that what I went through was not just a near-death experience. It was a new way of seeing life, a way that allows me to accept both the good and the bad with open arms. It's something I carry with me every day. Carl Jung, one of the most influential figures in psychology, made profound contributions to our understanding of the human mind, and his insights continue to shape modern psychological practices and theories. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Jung wasn't satisfied with a purely materialistic approach to understanding the psyche. He ventured into realms that others avoided, exploring the symbols, archetypes, and unconscious forces that connect us to a greater spiritual reality. He believed that the human mind wasn't just a product of biological processes, but was intimately linked to the spiritual world, a belief that made him an outsider in much of the scientific community. Jung's research into the deep recesses of the unconscious led him to investigate the possibility that human consciousness could transcend physical death, an idea that remains contentious within modern psychology. One of the most striking aspects of Jung's work is his willingness to entertain ideas that many of his peers rejected outright. For instance, while the majority of psychologists and psychoanalysts continue to deny the existence of an immortal soul, Jung's ideas on the soul's potential continuation after death were influenced by his own experiences. He didn't claim to have proof of life after death, but he gathered a series of personal anecdotes and psychological insights that led him to believe in its possibility. Jung once said, Before these experiences, I had never written about life after death because I could not confirm my thoughts in any way. But now, I feel compelled to voice my opinions on the matter, even if it turns out that I was wrong. I feel like I'll lose something truly significant if I don't speak out. These words reveal a pivotal moment in Jung's thinking, a shift from skepticism to a form of intellectual courage, driven by personal experience rather than academic certainty. This vulnerability is one of the reasons why his ideas resonate so deeply with many people, particularly those who have had similar mystical or transcendent experiences. While Jung was clear that there is no scientific evidence for the existence of an afterlife, he also noted that certain personal encounters seem to suggest that there may be more to our existence than we can currently understand. These experiences, according to Jung, weren't proof in the conventional sense, but they were deeply meaningful and pointed to the possibility of a life beyond the physical realm. One such experience occurred after the death of a close friend. Jung had attended the funeral the day before, and that night found himself alone in his room. He suddenly felt a strong presence, as if his deceased friend was there with him, inviting him to follow. Initially, Jung dismissed this sensation as nothing more than a product of his imagination. However, something in him urged him to act on the feeling. He rose from his bed, crossed his garden, and walked out onto the street, following an invisible trail that seemed to lead him somewhere important. To his surprise, he found himself standing in front of his friend's house, a place he had never visited before. It was as if he had been guided there, even though he had no conscious intention of doing so. Once inside, Jung was drawn to the library, a room he had never entered. In his vision, his friend reached for a book on the top shelf, a red-bound volume from a series of 5. Jung was so captivated by this strange encounter that he visited the widow the following day and asked to see the library. To his astonishment, the 5 red-bound volumes were exactly as he had seen them in his vision. Jung picked up the second book and read the words, "The Will of the Deceased," on the cover. This eerie coincidence left a lasting impression on Jung, reinforcing his belief that such experiences pointed toward a reality beyond our everyday perception. Another such experience occurred when Jung's wife's relative passed away. That night, Jung had a vivid dream in which a woman wearing a nightgown emerged from his wife's bed, which had mysteriously transformed into a deep pit. Startled, Jung awoke and checked the time. It was 3 a.m. The next morning, he learned that the relative had died exactly at that hour. While these occurrences could be dismissed as coincidence, Jung believed they were significant and potentially indicative of something greater than mere chance. Jung didn't limit his exploration of the afterlife to strange dreams and visions. He also noted a pattern of recurring dreams involving people who had passed away. One such dream involved his late sister, Emily. In the dream, he walked with a woman whose name he could not recall. They strolled through a garden, and Jung sensed that the woman was still alive, but would soon die. The following day, he learned that an acquaintance had passed away at almost the same time as his dream. He immediately connected the dream with the woman he had seen. These types of dreams were not isolated incidents. Jung had several more dreams in which he interacted with deceased friends and relatives. One of the most striking involved a conversation between 2 men, one of whom had been deceased for some time. In the dream, they were discussing psychology, and the deceased man seemed very intent on the conversation. Jung noticed that the man gestured for him not to interrupt. This dream, in particular, made Jung reflect on the nature of the soul's continuing desires. He speculated that perhaps the souls of the deceased were still working to fulfill their intellectual and spiritual aspirations, even after physical death. One of the most profound dreams Jung experienced occurred nearly a year after his wife, Emma, passed away. In this dream, Jung and Emma were vacationing in southern France. where she was busy collecting documents related to the Holy Grail. Jung interpreted this dream as a sign that even after death, the soul continues its work, its growth, and its journey toward completion. This understanding helped him find peace with her passing, as it suggested that her soul still had unfinished business that it was now pursuing. Through these experiences, Jung concluded that if the soul is real, it must belong to a different realm altogether. He believed that while we are alive, we temporarily possess a soul that is part of a larger, more profound existence. Upon death, he theorized, the soul returns to its original realm, where it continues its journey. Jung was cautious, however, about making definitive claims. He acknowledged that we can never be entirely certain about the nature of the soul or its fate after death. What we can know, he said, is that there is a possibility, just a possibility, that some part of us continues to exist beyond our physical bodies. Jung was also acutely aware of the ways in which the unconscious mind works to alert us to dangers, often through dreams or premonitions. These warnings, however, are often ignored or misunderstood. Jung himself was deeply attuned to these messages. On one occasion, while traveling by train, he had a vivid dream in which he saw a man drowning. When Jung woke up, he initially dismissed the dream as just an unsettling image. But when he returned home, he learned that his youngest grandson had nearly drowned that same day while walking along the shore. The boy, who could not swim, had fallen into the water but was saved just in time by his older brother. This incident reinforced Jung's belief that the unconscious mind picks up on hidden dangers and attempts to communicate them. Jung's exploration of these mystical and psychological realms led him to develop a new worldview. He believed that much of what we perceive as reality may be an illusion, a projection of a greater power or consciousness. Our souls, he theorized, are the true reality, and the physical world we experience is temporary, a mere condition that is shed when the body dies. This view aligns with certain spiritual traditions that suggest life is but a brief, fleeting experience, and that our true essence exists in a realm beyond time and space. In an interview just 2 years before his death, Jung was asked about his belief in God and whether death meant the end of existence. He replied, "I do not believe in God. I know. There is a fundamental difference between belief and knowledge. I also know that death is not the end because certain mental events transcend time and space. Dreams, visions of the future, and similar phenomena exist. Only ignorance can deny them. These experiences prove that the psyche is not bound by physical laws, suggesting a continuity of existence beyond death." Despite this certainty, Jung was careful not to claim definitive proof of the existence of a spiritual realm. What he could say, however, was that there was a possibility, just a possibility, that something of our consciousness might continue beyond death. Jung's reflections on near-death experiences and the afterlife provide us with valuable insight into his worldview. While these experiences cannot be considered scientific proof of God's existence, they undoubtedly help shape his understanding of life and death. Jung believed that faith in God should not be based on blind belief, but rather on personal experience. Perhaps his thoughts offer us a chance to reflect on our own beliefs and seek out answers to life's most profound questions. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Your support is deeply appreciated. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again for watching.